most all cases, we have seen that people who had questions or a little bit skeptical about what VR can be, totally turn around and become the fan and advocate.
So many times people say, I'm a convert when they come out of a great VR experience. And they might ask you some skeptical questions beforehand, and then afterwards you say, do you want to ask me again? And they say, no, it's all right, actually.
Even simple things like your head-up display, how that might work, how you indicate where to go in environments. Classic 2D displays don't work very well in VR. You need to come up with new solutions for those problems.
How you manage the camera. I mean, taking the camera control off your head doesn't make you feel very good. It's a bit weird, whereas the camera's been used to great effect in more traditional games to kind of add a feeling or a sensation.
Actually, even just the development process is quite different, because when you make games, on a console, you typically develop using 3D tools, like on a PC or something, using a keyboard and mouse, but you're looking at what the content will look like on the screen. And the tools you're using are PC tools. But to feel like what the content feels like in VR, you really want to almost develop in VR, because that minute-to-minute iteration is so different. Like, oh, should I make that taller? Should I make this building twice as high or whatever? Because when we were making the first demos, when we did the castle demo, I made the castle demo like 5 times too small, and it looked like a toy castle. I had to go in and have to scale it back up, go in again. So actually, even just the whole process kind of needs to adapt, because you need to be in there to create content for it.
It's definitely a new way of thinking. If you think about when we had Doom, and then it went to Quake. So you went from, it's 3D, but it's pretty much on a single plane. And then suddenly, then Quake came along, and it was, wow, now there's verticality. And now we've got the 3D worlds we've always created in the verticality, but now I can look up. That's part, it's that simple. It's not me dragging a camera up, which then takes my view away from somewhere else. So our designers are having to think about the worlds they're creating, the design of stuff in a very, very different way.
Developing a normal TV game, we might, as developers, put up with a fairly bad experience for a long period of time and optimize it towards the end. But developing in VR, we have to keep that experience good throughout, because that is the experience that we're having when we put the PlayStation VR on.
How will PlayStation VR work with some of the other features of the PS4? Like, can you share play it? Can you live stream it?
That's a secret still. Yeah, the hardware guys have pretty much completed their work, but still the system software team is hard at working, all those system features. So that's why we are not showing the a system UI or the non-in-game. In VR gaming experience when you have PlayStation VR, and that will come, soon in the future. So.
Very large number of those issues have actually been resolved just through improvements in the hardware. Maintaining frame rate, latency, those things are critical for it. A lot of the other ones are best practices that we're learning as we're going along. We share our games and our experience at trade shows. We do a very, very large amount of user testing. Day by day, we're getting better at understanding what the triggers for comfort or discomfort are, and we work those out of the equation.
I think we're pushing the envelope all the time. In Rush of Blood, we do some of the things that only a short period of time ago people were saying, you shouldn't really do that. We do acceleration, deceleration. There are ways around lots of these problems, and we sit down with the incredibly talented guys we have, and they look at the challenges, they look at how we deal with motion and camera and things like that, and then they work out algorithms around those sort of things. So tomorrow we're going to give people the chance to play Rush of Blood, and people will start to see that we can solve these problems, and it's about that experimentation and pushing forward with that.
I think it's critical we do that as well. I mean, that was the challenge from a personal point of view that I wanted to overcome with rigs. We look at VR, and people tell you can't move in VR. It's impossible. You just shouldn't do it, and you must stand and look at a static table. That's not the future of VR that I wanted to see, and that's not the future of VR that we're attempting to achieve here. We want to have a VR where people can explore and move around environments and see this wondrous world for themselves.
Yeah, and it's certainly a content choice, because you know, people still get sick these days from playing first-person shooter games, and
Yeah.
that's a flat TV. And so, you know, some people will, you know, avoid games that cause extreme acceleration or whatever that may be, just like some people avoid going on roller coasters. But the important thing is that it's 100% possible to make an experience inside the current hardware that will make, well, I don't want to say 99% because I'm an engineer, but like essentially out of the hundreds of people I have demoed to at trade shows, we kept a tally and it was like 1 out of 450, and that person was slightly inebriated. So like, I think that's a pretty good score. You know, you can make stuff that essentially does not cause discomfort. But if you want to have a more extreme experience, then that's going to be for some subset of people.
And these experiences are exciting as well.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah, it is. I'd like to think Shuo backed me on the fact that being ejected 60 foot into the air from a rig is an exciting experience, you know.
Yeah, that was a time when exact moment that rig was greenlit. Yeah, we've been finding, all of us are finding it's a challenge for VR developers to keep the fresh testers to come in and try, because you do get used to.
Yeah.
Like developers wear headset many hours a day, so like early development version of rigs, you know, some of us are trying for the first time and getting a bit, you know, queasy, and Cambridge team was, no one, you know, studio any problem.
You do get very rapidly acclimatized to it, and that's a blessing as well as a curse. The curse is that when you're developing, you do need to test rigorously and often. The positive side to that is that we know that we can introduce people to the game over a period of time, build them up, allow them to change the setup in a way that's good for them, and that they will acclimatise and they will have a great experience. The hardest thing that we have to do is to come to a trade show where we have no time to acclimatise and put people into a live game that they've had no tutorial on and go, off you go, get fired up into the air 60 foot. And that's about as extreme as it gets from our point of view.
As creators, we're always looking for immersion. We're always looking at a way of bringing people into the game, whether it be something as simple as creating your own story and influencing your own story. And now it's about dropping people into worlds that really feel real for the first time. Shuei on stage talked about that feeling of presence, that belief that even though your mind knows you've got a headset on, that you actually think you're there, which is just a paradigm shift for the industry.
It becomes almost about building the world is a really big fundamental part of it. And the experience you can kind of add as you go, but you often find that you just put people in these fantastic situations, and that's kind of enough.
I think the border of what we call game and non-game will become much blurrier, and we just create some experiences that are really entertaining for lots of people.
PS4 for the players.